Thanks for staying with us and welcome back. This is Daybreak. Many thanks for your company. Senior Counsel Okongo Omogeni, Advocate Steve Ogola and Ahmed Hashi, commentator on governance and politics, with me in studio this morning. And gentlemen, let's carry on from where we left and coming to you first, Senior Counsel. And yes, you had a point before the break. Yes,
I think it's my rotation. Yes, yeah. I think the point is the Prime Minister said the other day that anybody with an identity card should be able to vote. Now, on the face of it, that's actually sounds good, feels good. And whenever it sounds good and whenever it feels good, then I become very suspicious. Because, you know, one of the things, and the lawyers on the right here will tell you, is that, you know, there's something called a voters list, which establishes who voted, which establishes an examination of the vote. And without a register and a voters list, people can vote multiple times. Yeah. People can go and do very strange things by just presenting their ID. And if the system there corroborates with the individual who wants to vote 3 or 4 times, and it is done on a massive scale, given that elections in Kenya are, you know, 50-50 and everybody just has to get a few 100,000 votes to win the seat. That's now the common trajectory. Then I think that we ought to oppose the Prime Minister's idea about presenting just identity cards. And I think this has got to do with his constituency in Nyanza, which is notorious for not going to the vote. Notorious. I mean, well, before the vote, all the dim and all the shouting comes from Nyanza. But on the day of the vote, 1.3 million. It's shocking. So I think that this is a frustration. I do not want to impugn the Prime Minister. He's my senior and I wouldn't want to do that. But I disagree with him on this issue. There must be a voters list, there must be a register, so that we know who voted in this country, so that when the person at the polling... See, I'm standing for the seat in Langata constituency as Member of Parliament. And I won a primary in 2012 under the party. But it was decided that there was a retiring fellow and he should be given. I didn't jump the party, I didn't leave the party, I supported the candidate and actually campaigned for him to go and win the seat. Because I believe that political parties are not vehicles to take you to power. Political parties are supposed to be institutions in this country. It's not a passenger train. Like you finish it and you go to power and you forget about this is what's happening to one of the greatest parties in sub-Saharan Africa that we built. From 2012 on the Orange Democratic Movement. It was the biggest political parties. And now it is become a Matatu party, where the Secretary General is standing up and saying something else, the party leader is saying something else. The country, which was absolutely in the arms of ODM, now is completely outside ODM. I think that we ought to be very, very serious about this IEBC, because since the break of the Cold War, last point, Cold War, the dictatorship has moved from the cult of personality to the dictatorship of electoral commissions. So that's where the vote is being won. We need, India has got 1.3 billion people, for God's sakes. God's sakes, 1.3 billion people go to the vote. And it comes that nobody gives a whiff about what the results are, and everybody accepts it. Yeah. If we can't do that, then we are lost.
And Senior Counsel, this is the point. Recently, Kenyans were... because of the apprehension over the conduct of their representatives at the bicameral parliament had initiated the recall process. The IEBC in a presser said that there is currently no enabling legislation defining the grounds and the procedures for recall. This legal gap arises from the High Court's ruling in Katiba Institute and Transform Empowerment for Action Initiative versus the Attorney General and another. In that case, provisions within the Elections Act of 2011 were declared unconstitutional for being discriminatory. Then how can the Kenyan people do that exercise in the long run?
Yeah, first I hope that Steve normally travels to Kenya to vote. Yeah. He's not part of the 1.3 million who never travel to Kenya. Yeah, now, I think I don't know who to blame, whether it should be Parliament, whether it's the Attorney General. because somebody ought to have initiated a bill to address the decision that was made by the Supreme Court, by the High Court, yeah? In I think 2017, one of our most respected civil societies, I'm sure Wakili Steve will agree with me, Katiba Institute is a very, very respected civil society. It's done a number of public interest litigation. Went to court and declared, I think, three provisions of, if I remember well. I have a lot of trust to Wakili to my left, so where I get it wrong, he can correct me. I think it declared 3 sections of the Elections Act to be unconstitutional. The first one was section 45, you know, 45, 46, and
47.
I think 48. I think. And you know, what 45 was saying is that if you want to recall your member of parliament, then he must be taken through due process, and then is found to have breached Chapter 6 of the Constitution, okay? Or he must be taken through due process and is found to have mismanaged public resources, okay? And then it says, 3, before you make a move, you must have also taken another further step, gone to the High Court, and gotten a declaration from the High Court saying that this particular elected leader has breached those 2 provisions of Section 45, and the court gives you a certification. Then you walk to the IEBC with that certification, okay? And then 46 said, if you are not a registered voter when the voting took place, you don't have a capacity to initiate a recall, okay? And then it also said, if you participated in the election and you are defeated, you can't sponsor a recall.
Correct.
Okay? And then finally it said, you must garner 50%. Okay? Before you recall the member of parliament. So when these guys went to court, the court said, these provisions are amorphous, so strenuous. You're actually putting roadblock to that very important constitutional right of recall. So all those sections were declared unconstitutional. And the law has never been amended to put in place a process of recalling. So I think that's what IEBC is saying. Even if you came with signatures, there is no existing legal framework that can enable us to initiate a recall process. Because Wakili Steve will tell you, in any jurisdiction where you have a recall, there must be a process. You go through. You saw, I think in 2021, if I'm not forgotten, there was an attempt to recall the governor of California. Okay, and you know what the Constitution of the state of California says is, if you want to recall your governor, you first get 65 votes, registered voters to sign for you. Then you have 180 days to get 12% of the registered voters in that state to support your recall. And about 5 of them must be from different counties within the state. Okay, so the threshold was not met, and I think Gavin, the governor, retained his seat. But there are examples of a number of states where that, and I think what the constitution of that state says, it is, in fact, it was lifted and put in our own Elections Act, the one that was nullified by the court. It said you must, in the vote, 50% of the registered voters must agree to recall the governor. If they don't, then there is no recall. And that happened in I think, 2012 in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, they attempted, but they didn't garner the numbers. But in a number of states, it has happened. So it's nothing unusual to give citizens a right to recall. In 1921, the governor of North Dakota was recalled. Because he mismanaged farming and the prices of various farm commodities really dropped, and he was recalled. He left office. In 2003, this celebrity we call Schwarzenegger. How do I pronounce that one? Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, Schwarzenegger. You know, he became a governor because Davis, who was in office, was recalled. And what the law says is, when you are given the questionnaire, they say, may Governor so and so be recalled. Do you agree? Yes. Then there is an alternative. Whom do you want to replace him? So I think IEBC is telling us that even if they wanted to recall somebody now, such a structure does not exist in our statutes. So we must then make a move to amend our laws to put in place that legal framework. In the US, you don't recall congressmen. You cannot call a member of House of Representatives. You cannot recall an elected senator, because they don't manage public resources. So you cannot accuse a senator or a representative that you want to recall them because they don't manage resources. I think we also need to, I know we are very unpopular at times, but we also need to consider that should we extend that recall even to members who don't handle resources, or we restrict it to people.
And political parties.
In South Africa, by the way, in South Africa, if you remember, Ahmed, you know, they have recalled presidents twice.
Yes. They fired one.
Thabo Mbeki was recalled. The recall clause.
Executive Council of the African National Congress.
And the reasons, if you see, Thabo Mbeki was being accused of interfering in the corruption case that was facing who? His predecessor, Zuma. Okay, and the Zuma was recalled because he was creating...
He was corrupt.
He was perceived to be corrupt because he was engaging some Asian tycoons.
He was jailed.
Yeah, so it's good. That is the best way of having accountability. So I hope that the Attorney General or somebody progressive can propose an amendment to the law so that we create a legal framework that can assist the recall. But I'm sorry to say, as we sit here today, you can't recall anybody because there's no legal framework.
I think there's an opposing view.
No. I differ fully. And I believe it's very difficult to now comment on this matter because Senior Counsel has covered everything. But just for purposes of adding another layer of conversation, the right of recall is a constitutional imperative underpinned by Article 104 of the Constitution. It is a democratic tool for accountability for elected leaders. But the pathway for implementation of Article 104 is reserved for legislation. So let us first debunk the fallacy that Article 104 is self-executing. It is not self-executing. You need a statute to operationalize Article 104. It is also not a human rights issue. It is not a core value. It is a tool for realizing other core values like accountability in governance. Having said so, in terms of sequencing the realization of this act, Katiba Institute approached the High Court and persuaded the High Court to declare certain sections, Section 45, 46, 47, and 48, as unconstitutional for reason that they made it extremely difficult to initiate and perfect a recall. Said you cannot initiate a recall 24 months into the term, the first and the last 24 months of an MP's term, and you cannot also initiate that recall unless you're a registered voter and you garner a certain number of registered voters signing the petition, and you cannot recall an MP if you are the political opponent. The High Court already held that these provisions were burdensome and unconstitutional because they, in effect, undermined Article 104. They were directed, the National Assembly was directed to enact a fresh legislation, a recall law, to operationalize Article 104. That has not been done. To the extent that we do not have legislation, the right to recall an MP will remain deferred, not defeated, deferred until such a time that the law will be enacted. The rationale, and I find it very exciting, what Senior Counsel said, Mheshimiwa Kongo Mogeni, as a democratic tool for accountability, we should be targeting recall or reserving the right of recall to persons who exercise executive powers. Because if you, that is the governors and the presidents, a governor can be recalled through a removal process. The president can be recalled through impeachment process. For elected leaders in the legislative assemblies, there's already an inbuilt mechanism, legal framework for quote-unquote recalling them. The law says if an elected leader has been convicted of an offense or misses a certain number of parliamentary seats, I think there are 8, then you stand to lose your seat. If you've been convicted with no further right of appeal, you could lose your seat. However, if you want to create a special legislation to recall MPs, then you must ask yourself that we need to constrain the right of recall or circumscribe it, that is the right word, to parliamentary functions. Passing bills, sitting in committees, vetting, roles that MPs perform in the House, not for failing to attend funerals or failing to contribute to Harambee. I'm very serious, yeah? You cannot recall an MP for failing to contribute to Harambees. That is not also consistent with democratic trends.
Yeah, okay.
So I think we create heavy weather around the right of recall, but in essence, I want that law to be there so that Kenyans can learn the hard way that even if you have an efficient recall law, you still will not be able to recall your MP unless you can prove that he's been convicted and he's exhausted all his rights of appeal, or unless you can prove that he has, by the time he's missing parliamentary sittings, the Speaker is already aware. So really, why would you be petitioning the High IEBC? So the procedural safeguards must be in place. The UK Right of Recall Act 2015 makes this role mirror the by-elections. When there's a vacancy,
you're absolutely right on that.
The Speaker transmits this notification to the IEBC. IEBC then opens a register. People then come and sign on the threshold. It is verified. Then you stand recalled. We do not need a recall election and a by-election.
He's absolutely right on that. He's absolutely
figure out that.
He just stole my thunder. I was going to speak about that. But let me just add one thing. If we can recall bad medicine from the shops, or bad cars, or the manufacturer can issue a recall notice.
Why not a bad MP?
Why not a bad MP? You know, we want to make common sense to the people of this country. Because if we go into the legalese of it, then they might follow it, but then they might get topsy-turvy about it as well. So I think that the more common sense we inject into these issues, the better it is. So if you have a bad car that's veering to the right when it's supposed to veer to the left, the MPs are doing the same thing in the National Assembly. For an example, our National Assembly is unable to deal with a president who is causing bedlam in the country. Because we know why. Because of corruption. So, who's the manufacturer of these MPs? It's the people. The people are the ones who manufacture these. And I think the benefit of the doubt, and the benefit of the doubt should be with the people as far as the issues of recall are. I take what my learned friends on the right are saying, and I think it's wholly correct. But then we must find a very simple process in which we can recall these MPs who are rogue. And also, one of the things that is also important is something called voter education. I mean, one of the things that the IEBC needs to do is to have a really good program for voter education. Second of all, political parties have to vet the people who are coming in to stand for these elections. Because, you know, if you are a car thief last week and you're standing for Member of Parliament, to go and amend the laws for car theft. So, what you're doing is you're killing the legislature. I also think that it is important for us to understand that the judicial system in this country, with all the blame that it has, all the criticism it has for the system as far as corruption is concerned, we also have to make sure that the judicial system is clean. One of the most important things in this country is to make sure that our judges and all the people who are dealing with the issues of injustice in this country is clean. That's how we're going to move ahead. I put it to you, Ayub.
And Senior Counsel, coming to you, and this is regarding the regulation of the financing of the election. And while Article 84, subsection 4, requires the IEBC to control both the campaign contribution and campaign expenditure, that hasn't been the case, is it, in our case, because of the lacking equal opportunity between the rich candidates and those who are regarded as the modest in financing their campaigns? How can that be attained as well?
Oh, that's been a hot potato. It's very difficult because the legal framework that you need to put in place may not fit the economy of this country. You know, if you have somebody starting for an MCA and you want them to form committees open an account.
Yeah.
And each money you're going to use in the campaign is deposited there. Then you have a team that prepares a budget, oversees. It's not easy, because that can happen in countries like, the West, where you're running for presidency. How much did Trump raise last time?
Billions.
Several billion US dollars. So that's money you cannot handle as an individual. But the money that we spend here may not make sense for people who are running an election to have such a budget. But at the higher level, maybe from gubernatorial seat to presidency, we need to have some discipline. And rigging of an election using money begins several months or years before an election. What is happening now? You are an elected leader, maybe a deputy president, member of parliament, and you walk to constituencies in a month. You are spending more than 6 million.
It's a lot of money.
There should be a legal framework where IEBC should be able to summon me and say, you are gaining unfair advantage against other candidates. What is the source of your money? Even EACC should be able to call me and say, now, we have various laws in this country, including a law that bars me. I can't walk to a bank today and withdraw 1 million. You can correct me, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Isn't that the law?
Yeah, sure.
So how does the DP, we should be in the forefront in showing that as leaders we respect the rule of law. Where does he get the power to walk to a bank, assuming he withdraws the money? He walks to a bank and withdraws more than 1 million. What reasons does he indicate? If we asked for his financials, because we are talking about, you heard what Wakil said. He said every law that we pass is to enhance accountability. If we challenged him to appear before this show, we need account for each coin that he has donated in all these empowerment forums and tell us that this money came from my account. I walked into this account, withdrew the money, and I took it to, yesterday was in Baringo. He gave 1.2 million, and I donated 1.2 million. Wakil will tell you that the Public Officer Ethics Act does not allow us to go soliciting for money. So you can't say that I got this money from my friends. Yeah. The law bars you. That idea of putting a card in your office and everybody walking in, you tell him, "Ebony Jazi and Arambe," that is outlawed. So if we need, action. They say action does what? Speaks louder than words. If we need transparency, let's start from what Kenyans can see, what we can see on a day-to-day basis. Then you can tell us that in the run-up to the election, we truly are going to have a free, fair, credible, fair election. Otherwise, when you do this and Kenyans are watching and you're not accountable, why should you hold the next person accountable? If you, as a deputy president, you as a member of parliament, you're not being held accountable for these basic laws that have been put in place. Steve, you may add maybe there is the rationale. Because when we pass a law, there must be a rationale behind it. There is some mischief that the law wants to cure. When we said you can't walk into a bank and withdraw 1 million, what mischief did you want to cure? And why can't my good friend, a professor of law, Kindiki, say, these are the women groups I want to support. I'm going to wire money to their account. I'm going to wire, just get the account and say, from my account, I'm wiring money. So that we say, truly, we are transparent.
Very difficult.
Yeah, because if we let that go, we are going to have a culture of impunity. The next person online to abuse the law will be who? Governor. Using state resources. So I'm still going to make an appeal to our institutions. The people who can help us are the independent institutions. If you look at the 2010 Constitution, the intention of Kenyans was to create independent institutions. Institutions that can hold people to account. That was the spirit of the 2010 Constitution. We are being let down by many institutions.
And the last time they were in your county, Nyamira County, one of the women groups with the 31-member
was given 2,000.
2,000 Kenya shillings. So apparently everyone ended.
Ahmed, if you divide,
64.
how much were they getting? 64 shillings. And here is a deputy president. I think I was reading today's paper.
You know, sometimes
he's saying that this project is to empower women to do business. Now, 64 shillings. What business will that poor lady in Yamira?
Actually, he said empowerment cash, not for bread or clothes.
Now you know why he was appointed deputy president. Now you understand.
And he's our colleague. He's a lawyer.
No, yeah. Well, you know, lawyers are with no pun intended. My learned friends on the right here. We've had problems with the lawyers from the time immemorial. That's why it's called some kind of profession. I'm not going to repeat that, but I think that it is appalling that our deputy president, a man who obviously is quite learned, Mr. Kindiki was doing a good job in internal security. And I think that every time someone does a good job in some ministry in this country, the first thing they do is they take him away from there. Because we're not allowed, you know, there's a very funny story, and I'm not going to name names, was a very bright minister was removed from their posts. And the next minister who sat there said, I'm not going to shine the way they did. Look at what happened to her. She was removed from the job. So I think that Mr. Kindiki's job as the deputy president, he is doing the job of a deputy president anywhere in the world. The only problem we have with him is that this money that is being given out is what is called in nomenclature a slush fund. A slush fund, which comes from the office of the president. And the president, of course, is giving a slush fund to Harambee Stars, which I agree with. It's hypocritical for me to agree with the slush fund Harambee Stars and then not agree with this one. But this one is palpably an intense violation of our laws.
Yes.
It's an intense one. But the one for Harambee Stars is about gross national pride. It's a different thing. So I think that the commissions that were entrenched in this constitution have to do their job. And the people appointed, they have to be adroit. They have to be fierce. Really fierce, and they have to call into question all these shenanigans that are happening in the country.
Yeah, and Steve, talking about that, and when we talk about campaign financing, we have seen the past elections and the threshold for one and the respective categories of leadership are provided from the MCA up to the presidency. But accountability has been lacking, is it? And we seem not to attain that.
Well, just before I comment on that, I think the Deputy President has heard Senior Counsel's comments, and someone in his communication team should prefer a response. I do not want to enter into the realm of speculation as to where the sources are. But back on campaign financing, Ayubu, again, Article 88, Sub-Article 4, Paragraph I of the Constitution requires IEBC to control the use of money raised, the amount of money raised and spent in an election. Money raised and spent. So the rationale for controlling campaign contribution is the need to limit quid pro quo corruption, big people financing candidates and then requiring favors after the election. The rationale for controlling expenditure is often explained as the need to limit the corrosive effects of money in the electoral process and also to promote equal opportunity, not just an opportunity, but equal opportunity for all candidates to be able to contest, so that rich or wealthy candidates do not crowd out modest spenders. I like the rationales. They sound good, very lofty, ambitious, you may say so. In terms of operationalization, Ayub, the campaign financing provision is not self-executing. It also requires a primary statute to implement it, and we have the Election Campaign Financing Act 2013. The pressing question is, how come this legislation has not been operationalized 10 years down the lane? In 2017, when this act was supposed to be operationalized, the National Assembly did not approve the regulations that were intended to operationalize the act, and therefore the act stood suspended. In 2022, or just before 2022, again, a section of the civil society, including Katiba Institute, approached the High Court, and the High Court declared that the other component of publishing spending limits can be done by IEBC without parliamentary approval, but subject to public participation. However, even if IEBC publishes spending caps as they have done, you still need the regulations to be approved by the National Assembly to be able to operationalize those spending limits. So the net effect is, again, the National Assembly in 2022 suspended the regulations for want of public participation. Where we are right now, as we head towards 2027.
And whether that can be achieved.
IEBC should prioritize reviewing the regulations and resubmitting them to the National Assembly, to the Committee on Delegated Legislation in good time, so that they are not cornered by Parliament that we are rejecting this regulation because they have come so late in the day. I would like to see the Commission washing its hands of this matter by presenting the regulations in good time. Once the regulations have been presented, and let's say the Committee on Delegated Legislation approves their implementation, we now go to the hard question. Which is enforcement. I can tell you, Ayub, I am writing my PhD thesis on this matter, and I can tell you the results are very dim so far. IEBC is more likely to fail than it can ever succeed in implementing a robust legal framework for election campaign financing. I'm not talking about the non-existent or inadequate legal framework. I'm talking about a perfectly crafted legislative framework. IEBC will not implement it successfully, and I want Kenyans to make peace with that for two reasons. One is the peculiarities around our campaigns, and two is the trend generally globally. Okay. The peculiarity of our campaigns is candidates ride on the platforms of other candidates to get elected. It's easy to enforce contribution because about declaration, but can you enforce expenditure? Because an MCA will ride on all the other 5 seats to campaign without touching his budget. Will you tell an MCA not to ride on party structures and other friendly candidates not to campaign because IEBC will have a challenge auditing that finances? Secondly, to enforce campaign regulation, IEBC would need a very huge budget that could inflate the election budget, and IEBC struggles to access money for core election work. Okay. The election budget will now, IEBC will need an enforcement directorate full of statisticians, lawyers, auditors to audit the money on the go. And if they succeed, remember, the High Court will come to injunct the process, because if I'm in the middle of running for an election and you want to stop me because I've exceeded my limit, I will go to the High Court and say, let me be permitted first. So the practical challenges of enforcement are enormous. Some of them are external to the Commission. But the second and last reason why enforcement might become a legal or practical impossibility, in the United States, in 2010, the Citizen United versus Federal Electoral Commission, the Supreme Court of the US already said that there is need to deregularize. And the Supreme Court in the US have been increasing the momentum towards deregularization since 1976 in Buckley versus Value. Okay. The trend in the US is control contribution, but let candidates campaign freely. The modest spenders who fear that they can be crowded out should find alternative pathways for increasing visibility. Okay. One of such pathways, Ayub, permit me to say this, are the digital campaign platforms. I mean, what is the rationale for controlling expenditure when I can campaign via social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, websites, and all that? If you do not shift your focus to digital campaign platforms, you will then lose the whole conversation on equal access to voters. Okay. So I think it's an issue that is live. I would like IEBC to wash off its hands on this matter by resubmitting the regulations. Parliament should also wash its hands from this matter by approving the regulation. Then IEBC should now write to National Treasury requesting additional budget. Okay. And then let's see how enforcement goes. But Kenyans must know the best way to control corrosive effect of money is to reject it when offered. But Kenyans, I can tell you, Ayub,
okay,
it is Kenyan voters who demand to be given money by the politicians. If you do not give them money, you are losing.
Okay.
Maybe the bribery laws can work.
Yeah, I'll come to Senior Councillor Ahmed. Your hand was up.
I think the voters should take the money, but vote their conscience. It's my simple view. I think that taking the money is already money that's already been taken from them. So it's just an act of restitution, in my view. But then they should vote for the people who are going to change the country, who are going to bring good laws and who are going to be accountable. And I think that, of course, the public has a responsibility to do that. But in a country in which the income is $1 a day, I think it's very elitist for us to copy and paste liberal democratic procedures and sort of graft them to our system, which in itself is an uneven and in a metamorphosis. And I think that if we are to really get the will of the people is determined by the amount of votes cast. I've been in countries where, developed countries, where people come from the house. There is a neighbor who has been, who's volunteered to become the returning officer. You go to a basketball court, you place a white ballot in a plain box, and you go. The reason why we're talking about IEBC, resources, we're talking about all these issues is because we're afraid of theft. Everybody wants to steal. We want to steal from the government. We want to steal the vote. We want to steal people's consciousness. We want to steal, steal, steal. So I think it is important that we also have institutions that speak about the citizenship and the moral basis of citizenship in this country. But if you don't have food, you don't have a job, you don't have a way forward for your life because the republic is being run by people who are not providing the conditions for us to proceed, then it's become very difficult for us to talk about these issues, Ayub. Lastly, let me just say one thing.
Yes.
I think that this whole question is about the state of our democracy. We are all talking about the IEBC, we're talking about voters lists, we're talking about all these things. We're generally asking about the state of our democracy. And the state of our democracy today is that the people are fed up and they want to change the government, and they have said they've said that they're going to wait for the ballot box to change their government. And if their government tries to rig the election, or if someone else tries to rig the election, that is a recipe for the kind of conflicts this country has experienced all throughout its history.
Okay.
It's important that we put that on the
which
floor.
therefore then brings in the point of reforms that are needed at the electoral agency, is it?
Yes, because I think that we ought to be able to cast a vote and for it to be counted.
Okay.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And for it to be credible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very important. If we don't do that, this leads to conflict. You see the Gen Zs and what they're saying, that they demand a clear election, that they want a clean election. And if there is no clean election and people have in their consciousness that something has been stolen, they're going to erupt.
Okay. Senior Counsel, the chairperson, Erastus Ethekon, emphasized on that the Commission continues to grapple with significant challenges in undertaking its mandate and ensuring successful delivery of a credible, free, fair, inclusive, transparent election. He underscored the growing threat of fake news, cautioning that these digital disruptions may jeopardize the integrity of the democratic processes, not only in Kenya, but across the globe. This is on the horizon threat, is it? Arguably. But how does the IEBC then stave off this threat?
The threat of fake news, I think the best way to forestall fake news is to win public trust, create credibility. I mean, Steve has told us he's writing a thesis around electoral transparency. And I don't think if you rate in Africa, if you rate IEBC in terms of ranking, I don't think we are in the top 10.
Not in the top 100.
So the first thing you need to do, create public trust, create credibility. Once you win the public trust, even if there is fake news, that will not change. The fake news is everywhere now with these digital gadgets available to us. The fake news will always be there. But the task is for the IEBC to put in place processes that ensure that they win. You know, the moment you win public trust, then everybody will not listen to anything else other than what you say. When you listen to people like Kamket talking about we are not going to nowhere, you know, Africa now doing one term is like a normal thing. You don't shock anybody when a president loses an election. In the last 10 years, how many presidents have lost an election after one term?
None.
Zambia. No, why are you saying none? Many.
No, many.
Yeah, in Zambia the other day we saw Echilema Hakainde beating Edgar Lungu. The late Edgar Lungu, despite the harassment that he had faced from security forces.
In Senegal, fire against Macky Sall.
Yes.
Those are popular national transformations. It's not based on really on elections.
But still defeated.
No.
They're defeated. There's very rare and in between.
Ahmed, Liberia, just the other day, George Weah lost an election after one term.
54 countries.
No. Go to Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast. The president lost an election, he resisted. In fact, it was taken to...
Olesan Ouattara.
Yes, Ouattara was taken to ACC. Gbagbo took over. You go to Ghana.
Yaya Jammeh.
Yes. So what we need to tell Kenyans that at the end of the day, the decision makers are we, the people. We Kenyans. And IEBC should, I don't think anybody will kill the commissioners if they put in place a process that will ensure that the will of the people carries the day. That's all we are demanding. Let the most popular candidate who enjoys the mandate of the people carry the day.
Yeah.
Everywhere where there is a democracy, if we repute ourselves as being a democracy, mentally, if you are a president, you must tell Kenyans, I was sworn into office to serve for a 5-year term. Whether I'll get another 5-year term depends on you as Kenyans, renewing that mandate for me. And I think that's what our IEBC should be doing. Do a cleanup of the voter register. Remove the dead people. I mean, remove the dead people. Let me walk to a polling station and know that my registered voters are 1,200. But not to go to a polling station, you have 1,700, 400 are dead.
Yes.
I mean, really, this is one government. You have data on the people who have died. You can get these certificates, they are there. Get the names on the register, knock them out. Do a transparent process. Come to the people and say, in your polling station, we are removing these dead people. We are putting the register there for you. Read through, accept it. Who will question you? When you do an election, you know, the enabling legal statute is so nice. When you read it, it tells you, count the election, make the declaration, invite agents, the ones that Steve referred to, agents to come and sign there. Then you pin the results on the door.
Okay.
So for anybody to see. So that is the kind of assurance we need to hear from IEBC and assure Kenyans we don't have an interest in that in the upcoming election.
Thank you.
The decision makers will be you, the people. And I've said, you go to Botswana, you go to Namibia, go to South Africa, go to Ghana. There are many jurisdictions where you can go and benchmark. Come back and say, this is what we want to deliver to Kenyans. We want this nation to be there after 2027.
And in Ghana, they managed to have a peaceful election because the Electoral Commission and the political leaders plus the civil society agreed to have credible elections.
Let us, I think I like that statement. Let's start by having the president and all the candidates declaring that in this election, we are there to accept the outcome. Hi, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. I assure Kenyans that if you don't re-elect me back, I'll hand over to the next Kenyan to continue with the mandate. I mean, that's how you dismiss people like Kamket, who is telling Kenyans that we are going to starve ballots. What a reckless statement from an elected people.
And Steve, then how can the Senior Council talks about trust, but we saw apparent clear discord between the membership of the commission in the last election, the Cherera 4 polling on one side and then the other.
Shocking.
How can they work as a unit, talking about, before even roping in the other stakeholders?
First of all, trust cannot be litigated. It cannot be legislated. But trust is not entirely the function of IEBC. There are internal reorganization that the commission can implement that can improve public trust. And there are external environment that implicate the workings of the commission. Now, if you look at Article 88.4 of the Constitution, it says, IEBC shall be responsible for the conduct of elections and referenda. It places IEBC at the epicenter of election management, but, Ayub, it does not give IEBC the exclusive mandate of managing elections. Let's be clear on this. There are other important key players. So when you talk about trust on IEBC or trust in IEBC, it should be trust in the electoral process in the broader connotative experts. Trust in the electoral process must necessarily include the contribution by political party actors, elected leaders like Mheshimiwa Senior Counsel, Senator Kongo Morgan here, the religious groups, the actors in the criminal justice system who help us identify people who violate election law, including election offenses. So all these multi-sectoral agencies contribute to the trust in the electoral process. You cannot build trust in the electoral process and then neglect trust in the commission. Once you build trust in the electoral process, you, without saying, improve trust levels on the commission. So I would like elected leaders to be questioned on what they are doing to improve trust in the electoral process, because laws and regulations are passed by Parliament, I mean the Senate and the National Assembly. I'd like the criminal justice actors to tell us what they are doing to improve trust in the electoral process, because the ODPP is an independent office. It is responsible for enforcement of election offenses. Bribery is an election offense. How many people have you seen being convicted of bribery? Is that the function of IEBC? How come nobody puts the ODPP to task? How come when laws come late, nobody puts the office of the Attorney General to task? How come voters, the civil society, don't take responsibility? So I'm saying this is a shared responsibility. But on matters that are intensely internal to the Commission, I would want to appeal to IEBC to ensure cohesion and a seamless, some semblance of symbiosis between this commission and the secretariat. The Constitution anticipates collaborative greatness between the commission and the secretariat and within the commission itself. So intra-agency cohesion is something that cannot be outsourced. Let the chairman lead from the front, and I appeal to all commissioners to respect the voice and authority of the IEBC chairman. And I also appeal to the chairman to ensure that he works closely with the CEO so that Kenyans don't suspect that there might be problems, the kind of problems we saw when the Cherera 4 did the unthinkable, abandoning results halfway.
Yes, Ahmed, final word.
Well, I just think that what we need is a fair, credible, open, transparent vote. And, you know, it is really a signature that we are here today speaking about the nitty-gritty of elections. Because everybody knows that throughout our history of this country, elections have just been stolen, people have fallen from roofs, ballot boxes have been thrown on choppers. We urge that the constitutional officers that are supposed to deal with these issues to do their job and not to be hackers for the system and for the administration. They're independent. They're independent, and they need to be independent-minded, and they need to make sure that the people's will is secured. That's really critical. Otherwise, we don't want our country to keep going into a cycle of violence. We'll have no country here if we continue in this way.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time. Senior Counsel, much appreciated. Nyamira County Senator Okongo Omogeni. Counsel Steve Ogolla, thanks for your time. Ahmed.
Tough subject, but I think we made it make the public understand it.
Thank you so much appreciated. And thanks to you too.
Thank you.
You're watching Daybreak, and the broadcast continues after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.